Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Right. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
I trust that you had a lovely week. I think that anyone is, I'm trying to see if anyone's missing. Maybe, yeah, there are a couple of people not here yet. As a matter of fact, about half of you are here. Good morning, Lamar.
Good morning.
Anyone had any comments on the property management assignment? I see that everyone has turned it in. Anyone? Sorry, the assignment number 2. Before we start our session today, just wanted to see if anybody had any issues with that. Kevin?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I tried to go as in depth as possible. And I find the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I need to put some additional ingredients in it. So, I was trying to avoid overloading it, but the more I kept it, the more I thought about the different things that the property management agreement, should entail, and what, me and the should agree on. In terms of the property, and also it made me aware that I need to really understand the property and see what the property offering is, what makes the property stands out, so I can be an effective property manager in order to really sell it for the owner. So it made me believe that that the ball is in the property manager's court in terms of the effective management of the property, and also ensuring that the owner's return on investment is constant. And also, let's say it's consistent with what he expects from the area.
Okay, good observations. What I would advise after having look through these is that when you get them back, or even before that we actually going to spend a session talking about the property management agreement and lease agreements. Try to wrap those two things into one session, and we'll visit the property management agreement a number of times. I particularly like you starting with wrapping your brains around this agreement, because it helps you to think about yourself as a professional. And it is an important thing to be able to put together. But we'll revisit it a number of times. And in fact, we will focus it on further down. And you will have an opportunity to, the one that you've done now, to sort of tweak it and do stuff to it and change it and do others according to your will. It is an important thing for you to be able to feel comfortable doing. Many people operate businesses or operate business arrangement without written agreements, and it is a very dangerous thing to do. So you need to be very skillful at devising agreements for particular situations. No matter how small the situation, you want to be able to quickly just pull out a piece of paper and say, this is our arrangement, for sure. Okay, I think that, I'm not sure who's missing. Let me see. Maybe I should do a bit of a roll call or something. That might be helpful. Okay. And we're going to go back to primary school here and do a roll call. And when I call your names, I would like you to show me yourself. Because one of the problems with this Zoom environment, for instance, this online environment, it does lose the human feel to it. And at the very minimum, you'd like to be able to think you know what somebody looks like a little bit, although to be honest with you, seeing someone online doesn't quite help you with that. But okay, so I'm going to start at the top of my list. And the top of my list is Lachey. Just say good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So Lachey, did you have any particular questions from, I think you might have, did you have any particular questions from your assignments, both of them, or from the reading? I have to confess, I added chapter 4 just to be a little, a little over the top, but I really just wanted you to read 1 to 3. But I figured if I said 4, you'd at least get to 3.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments, Lachey?
Honestly, I know with my assignment, I know I wasn't sure if you wanted us to put pricing and stuff inside there.
That's the main thing. In my opinion,
with me, I am so like, not to say I'm green to the market. I'm just me, brand new, fresh, coming into the market, trying to learn. So for me, that was a thing for me. I sent a little message as well, letting you know, like that's something
I saw that.
That's something that I hope to learn in this class, exactly how would I gauge or how would I price my clients.
And we talked about how we're going to have a session on financial matters. There's some mention of that in chapter 4, but that's one of our main sessions to really talk about pricing.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you had a struggle with.
Yes.
What do you tell this person you're going to charge them? Yeah. In the real estate world, they do stuff like use percentages of the value of the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
You certainly can do that as well. But I'd like to tell you, if there's some transactions that are so small that a percentage of it is not worth your time. Mm-hmm. So, and some that are so large that a percentage of it becomes a little ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Or the same percentage becomes a little ridiculous. 10% of $100 million is, $10 million. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are not going to want to pay you $10 million for doing something. So you would have to kind of figure out how you work that stuff out. Okay, thank you. I'm making notes. So pricing. The next person on my list is Brittany. Brittany's here.
Good morning. Yes, I'm here. I don't know if you can see me.
Yeah, I can see you.
Hey.
Good to see Brittany. Take care. Any comments from the 2 exercises and the other little things you sort of been doing and the reading? Any comments? Anything that jumps there?
So like Lachey, I had issues with pricing as well. I wasn't sure the figures or the percentages, the numbers that I should have been putting.
Okay.
But I kind of put, kind of work something out and put it there. But
yeah.
We
all have good imaginations. I always say when you don't know, then you rely on imagination. Yeah. If without imagination, nothing gets created. It's a powerful thing. So you have to be comfortable with your imagination.
Right. And another thing too, I was looking at a few samples and I saw where they were like a couple of pages long, and I wasn't sure if mine would have been long enough. I think I did.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Okay.
Always do you.
Okay.
Do what you're comfortable with.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you. Cleophas. Mr. Cleophas Smith.
Morning.
Morning, sir. So, any thoughts on the 2 assignments that you have done, the reading, anything else that we've been communicating?
Well, I did the assignment 2 and I submitted it last night. With the pricing, basically, because I already started my property management business. Like you said, it's no set figure, so it goes based on percentages of basically the project. So you go and you survey and then you give an estimate. But one of my questions was, lesson 3 of the book mentioned if you have real property, you can create a trust for the property and have multiple properties in the trust, but managed separately. Okay. How does that work exactly? That was my question.
So the question,
because I have
that was your question, yeah.
Yes.
How does a trust for property work? Okay, so
yes, because I have a LLC, but the LLC covers my actual business. I don't have properties, or I don't put properties in the LLC. I put the businesses under the LLC to protect them from liabilities.
Wonderful. So we certainly gonna have to spend some time talking about legal stuff, creating an LLC, limited liability company. I think last week I told all of you the very minimum, and even if you have a limited liability company, I always advise everybody who has any skill, even if your skill is singing, or not even if your skill is singing, or if your skill is, making kites, whatever your skill may be, you form a company called Cleophas Smith Services or something, called Cleophas Smith Consulting. You can go on later and form, Banana Branch Limited or whatever, but you should always form a company in your name, so that, as I mentioned last week, I think all of you might have been here, but I'll say it again because I think it's important, so that if you get a little tiny job somewhere to do something for, say, a government agency or some other entity, many businesses actually will not cut you a check in the name of Cleophas Smith, or even allow you to do work for them if you don't have a business license. So for instance, if you have a particular skill in making kites and somebody wants you to make kites for them, but you don't have, this might be some big corporation. They might say to you, well, excuse me, we can't cut a check to your name. Or we can cut a check to your name, but you have to have a license. And it's great to have a business that says Cleophas Smith Services, because then you can ask them to cut the check to Cleophas Smith. It's not a long shot. It's a lot easier. In some cases, there are companies, I worked for one, that would not cut a check to the name of the owner if they did business with the name of the business. So if your business was Banana Leaf Limited, and you did a service for where I worked, and you came back and says, oh, I need you to cut the check to me, it will not happen. And said, nope, we didn't do business with you. We did business with Banana Leaf, and we got to cut the check to them. And you have some people who have businesses with wonderful names, and they don't have an account with that business name. And if someone cuts you a check in the name of an account that does not exist, you are in problems, because you will not be able to cash the check. And if you're talking about a business that will not refuse to cut a check in your name when they've dealt with your business name, you are in trouble. And I've seen that happen to some people. Okay, so we'll talk. Sorry, Kevin.
I'm saying that the piggyback on that, it looks kind of funny if you have a business and you want the people to cut you a check in your name. It gives the impression that the business, is kind of funny, or the business isn't paying its taxes or owes the bank some money. So you're trying to, work around that loophole and deal with have the business cut a check to you. So it creates that negative impression.
Yeah. I was responsible for procurement. It was one of the things I was responsible for in one of my last jobs. And we would not do it. We just won't do it. And we had a number of instances where persons tried that. They came and they had crocodile tears, my account is some problem with the account, with the business account. I really need you to cut the check. My name is like, nope, we're not doing it. You gotta figure that out, but we ain't doing it. So it's a good point. All right, sorry. Let's move. Thank you, Cleophas. Odessa, I guess I need to ask you, how are you feeling today, Odessa? She might just be listening, and I'm not sure. Oh, she's hearing. Her image is here now, so she's smiling.
So, yes, I'm feeling so much better. Thank God I'm over that.
Okay, good.
Good. Yes. For me, for the 2 assignments, I found them very interesting.
Odessa froze. Let me turn off my mic, my video. See if that helps you.
Sorry?
Hold on. Let me turn off my video. Stop the video. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, can you guys hear me fine?
Yeah, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, good. I was just saying that the industry is so intricate. It just has so many moving parts, and it can get very shallow and it can be extremely deep. So while doing both assignments, I was really surprised at how expansive this industry really is. I was excited to see the different arms of it in terms of it doesn't have to be limited to real estate, and the opportunities while doing the agreement. I noticed that you definitely cannot have one fixed rate, nor can you really have a lump sum rate. It has to be on a contract by contract basis. It has to be determined by the type of property that you are managing. So the spans of what you can earn from this is major. And the relationships that you can develop over the lifetime of your agreements can be very rewarding as well. And so I'm just still fascinated by all the facets of the industry. So I'm just looking forward to catching up on my reading, because I didn't get to do the reading like I wanted to. And doing the research is really cool. So far, I'm just really excited about it and looking forward to the rest of what we're going to cover.
Okay, wonderful. Blair, I saw you a bit just now. Blair Pesenti. Your mic is on mute, Blair.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. I found the two assignments to be very interesting, but the first one was a breeze for me because, I love research. I love doing research papers, but I can attest that I did have difficulty with the second assignment. Like, I think it was Miss Brown, Lachey Brown, she said, this is really my first time getting my feet wet in property management. So something like this, like creating an agreement, I've never done before, or I've done it, but not in depth like that one. So I was a bit iffy turning that in, because I felt as if, and I remember you saying, your statements within the agreement shouldn't be too open-ended or something like that, you said.
Yeah.
And so I found myself, just remembering that, okay, is this statement or is this phrase too open-ended? Would I end up losing as the property manager or as the agent if I put this like this? So that it was really challenging for me. The reading so far has really helped me, I must say. The comparative market analysis I think that would be in chapter 4. That helped me with pricing because I never knew you had to factor in all of those things to present your price to the owner. So that really helped me with setting a price. But I am very nervous about the second assignment, I must say.
Well, don't be. It's one of my assignments. It's going to be a living assignment. And I'm going to tell you in general, I am not one of those teachers who set out to have people fail. I have the opposite mission. I want every single person to do extremely well. You're not here to get grades. Mm-hmm. It's not a grade contest. And anyone who gets all caught up in grades is not going to do well. You're here to make your life better. Simple, pure and simple. And the mechanism for that in this course is to learn as much as you can. So you got to let go, let loose, relax, and you're here to learn. And if you didn't learn anything, then you have failed. And I have failed. I don't care what grade you get. The grades are not important. I want everyone to succeed and everyone to come out of this with, as a certified property manager, every single person. And I'm going to do what I can to make that happen. I can't obviously, I'm not going to ignore stuff that should not be ignored. You're going to find that I'm going to point out stuff as I see it. And I could be wrong sometimes, by the way. So if you think I'm wrong in what I'm suggesting or what my analysis is of your work, please let me know. That's how I learn, and we can make each other better. This is a learning experience for me as well. Teaching is one of the best learning experiences in life, but I am certainly not here. My vision is that every single person here is going to do very well, and that's what I want to see happen.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, Georgia Robinson. She is here. I see a name. Good. Ms. Robinson? Okay, I will. Oh, here she is.
I am here. I was trying to plug in my iPad. Sorry about that, class.
Okay.
The lessons, the first one was a good research. As stated, previously stated, the only thing with the second one was trying to establish pricing. That was a bit confusing. And even with reading the various agreements, whether it be US based or by state or whichever, trying to pick out what actually applied to the type of business you chose to manage. That was something, trying to pick out the clauses that would apply to whether it was a triplex, a complex, or a company, or whatever the case may be, and what all you wanted to do or not include. And yeah, so, and also I was a bit wary initially about it in terms of, we haven't done this yet, but yet I have homework on it. And yeah, that was a bit one of my challenges.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, Georgia, I have the utmost respect for everyone here, and I don't believe you're at the stage in your life where you can't wrap your heads around anything that's presented to you, no matter how challenging. So I tend to be a little challenging because I have that level of respect. I believe that you're going to be able to get it done. So half the times you're going to get assignments that are going to force you to have to learn stuff to get the assignment done. I think that's the best type of assignment in the world. Okay, thank you very much. Cohen Sweeting. I don't know that he is here. Cohen Asses. All right.
Good morning, everyone. both assignments was okay. It was informative. I learned a few new stuff. I didn't know property management have a lot of, property managers have a lot of duties. They have to set out personal goals, financial goals, professional goals. So it's a lot, it was very informative for me. The agreement one, I was a little iffy about it. So I found a template on Google and I tried to tweak it a bit. So it was challenging, like to put it in my own words from scratch. So that's why I used the template for that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Marjorie Thomas.
Good morning.
Morning, Marjorie.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, so both assignments I found quite interesting. For me, the history, I wish I had gone more into details with that, but the history I found very interesting and compelling. The way that it started out so organically and then just blossomed into this multi-billion-dollar industry globally. So I thought that was quite interesting. For me, the assignment itself was very self-explanatory. I had a problem, well, not really a problem, but looking at the comparative property management with project management and real estate, trying to, I was thinking I was supposed to have done one for each, but I think in the end, I managed to figure it out. The second assignment was fun because just like Cleophas said, I'm already in the property management capacity with my business. So this was very informative. And I think one of the other ladies mentioned how much detail you have to put in. And I looked at mine and I thought, oh my God, this is just like a small little menu. So I was able to revamp a lot of what I have in addition to what the text provided. And also from the research I looked at, and I pulled up a template. So I was able to make mine more professional by putting it in a template form, legal speak, as it were. So for me, I thought the assignment was very good. And let's see how it goes as far as grading and such, but I enjoyed that particular assignment. I almost got it wrong though, because I was gonna put it as a summary, but I read the assignment again and it said to make sure it's an agreement format. So that's pretty much it for me.
Thank you, Marjorie.
Okay.
Okay, we got two persons left. Kevin Turnquest, sorry.
Good day. Right, I think one of the words that I use when I constructed the agreement was covenant, that the property manager covenants, which means that, the agreement is between me and this specific person. So I wanted to make sure that there's glue between me and the person and that he understands exactly that whatever I'm mentioning after the word covenant specifies that we are both in agreement, okay? And what I've done, in regards to the agreement, I made sure I put together wordings, because it's real life to me, right? Because the wording that I'm gonna use in this assignment pretty much is going to be the wording that I'm going to marry into my business, you see? So I took it very, very seriously to know that I need to pick the right wording to really encapsulate exactly what me and this person are really entering into business with. And the business that I was looking at really was a multiplex which had like efficiencies and duplex component, and also it has units set aside for Airbnb, and each one of those units had special needs and whatever have you. And the whole thing really was how do I construct this agreement which would maximize me and also maximize the owner. In regards to pricing, what I did was that I use a performance fee because it's a multiplex. You have various units, so I said 5% of the rental income, okay, rental gross income. Which I'm sure the person, would have agreed to that. And also, I specified that, in regards to the repair and maintenance, that I would use credible persons who are at arm's length. I think with most persons, people like to use their cousin, their brother, or their sister, right? And they incorporate them in these businesses. And the sense of, you don't have that sense of assurance that the quality of the labor that's produced by persons on a non-arm's length basis is good. So I'm assuring the owner that I am not trying to shake him down. I'm using credible persons, and that, you know, whatever I do is performance based, and that once he makes money, I make money. So I wanted to tie everything together. And I think I incorporated the repair and maintenance component. I incorporated the revenue component, and also let's say in regards to the Airbnb component. So I think most businesses really have that aspect now. The whole thing really is that, you know, I think most persons want to make sure that people don't come in their business and break it up. I know I had an experience where I tried to rent a business for whatever have you, right? You know, it was an Airbnb for, you know, for something. And what happened was the person was very adamant that, you know, he wants persons of a certain type. And, you know, he doesn't want, he wants to ensure that the function is not one that has a high risk of damaging his property. So I had to make sure and make him aware that the function has certain characteristics and it's not a high risk. So with regards to the Airbnb market, I said, you know, I'm not going to go out and look for those spring breakers or no one of that sort. You know, I would treat this property as if it were my own, and look at all the risk components that would, you know, and try and minimize them. So, you know, I tried to put in place an agreement that I can use going forward. You know, I don't want to run on too much, but I found the exercise to be very apt, and it opened my door, opened my mind. In fact, you know, I even went in the yellow pages, and I was looking at the various businesses. You know, it may sound weird, right? But most of us don't know, you know, the various businesses out there and what they're offering. So I was looking at the plumbing businesses, you know, the businesses that offer like electrical and whatever have you. You know, this is going forward, just to get an idea of as to what businesses are out there that I can really incorporate in my business. All right, so you know, I'll end right there. But I
okay.
Live assignment.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin, in particular for your enthusiasm. I had the opportunity because Kevin turned his assignment in a couple of days ago, so I had the opportunity to have a look at it, and I laughed because he was doing business with someone on the street where I live. So I thought that was interesting. Springfield, he's doing it. It's like I'm sure I didn't tell him where I live, but that was quite a coincidence. What I will do, by the way, if anybody minds, and shoot me a note, I will. When we done with this, like I said, this is a living exercise. So this is an exercise like that I've given you to do. I'm gonna have a look at it, and when you get it back, I hope that everybody actually keeps working on it and making it better. You want to make your agreement your own. I know there are templates out there, but you actually want to make this agreement something that doesn't look like anybody else's agreement. I mean, exactly like somebody else's agreement. If you get my drift, you want to make it something that advantages you, while it also is something that makes the owner that you're dealing with comfortable. So you're going to keep working on this as we go through the next several weeks. But what I was mentioning, I want to share everybody's agreement that they've done now. So I'll redact it so that nobody knows whose agreement it is, and make sure it's not identifiable, that it's Kevin's agreement or Marjorie's agreement or anybody else's. But I want to share the general agreement so you can also get to look people over each other's shoulders and see how other people have approached this. Because I noticed from the two persons who submitted it a couple of days ago that they had very different approaches. Okay, last person. Sorry, Crystal. I'm gonna change my my order to the next time, so we don't come to you last. But you are Woodside, so that's why we're here. Crystal Woodside.
Not a problem at all, Mr. Fernando. I Good day, everyone. I did enjoy the assignments. However, with assignment number 2, it definitely has been a challenge for me. I am not strong. That is not one of my strong skills. And my approach with it, I did it as a general agreement, and I did not really specify, especially when it came down with pricing. But definitely assignment number 1, I enjoyed going back over with it. And going forward, I definitely want to get more into the agreements because, like I said, that has always been a challenge for myself, especially when it comes to pricing. And I know working with a particular company for a number of years was very, and I'm still fresh to this. I'm still new, I'm still green. I know there are various aspects of property management. And currently I'm just handling bill payment and courier services. But even the pricing for that is a little iffy because we're dealing with various government agencies. You can spend hours in one and you probably can spend 10 minutes in another one. So how do I price it? Do I just price it going on timing? And then do I include, well, definitely, you include transportation fee and all of those nice good things. But for this particular company, I was very much amazed the salary which they had distributed for the various tasks that they have assigned for me to do. So I am looking to get more in depth with the agreement so I could push further with the business and to be able to attract more clientele.
All right, thank you, wonderful. So yeah, that I'm very happy that we did that exchange. I want to tell you with the property agreement or the management agreement, property management agreement, you do want to sort through getting to a language that you are comfortable with. Sorry, let me turn this thing on. Yes, you want to get to a language that you are comfortable with, and that the owner that you're dealing with is comfortable with. I know there's a tendency for agreements to be very obtuse in the legal language. I'm going to tell you, that is not a necessity. There's some people who get pulled into thinking that this type of language is necessary. It is necessary to be clear in what you are saying, and not to say something that people look at and are not sure. And to be honest with you, lawyers like to say they put things in a way that the way they put it in because it makes it difficult for someone to not know what they're talking about. But I always argue that I don't know that they're correct about that because I read a lot of legal documents. I've read a lot of legal documents in my life. And I'm telling you, there are very few of them that are easy to understand. So I think they're sort of scamming me with this thing about their language is the language that makes it more clear, because you want to come up with a clear language. That's what I'm trying to say here. Something that the owner understands and something that you understand, but something that clearly says what you're agreeing to. And when you come up with your language, you may want to pass that by a lawyer. In fact, I think you should, because the lawyers have a way of thinking and see what they think about your agreement. But I would tell you, you don't have to cloak it in their obtuse language that they love to cloak everything in. I always say they do that so only they could understand it. So you have to come back to them and pay them more money for them to explain it to you. All right, so that's one point I wanted to make out of what was said. And Someone
always
talked about
in that way.
Okay, Crystal.
No, I said I thought it always had to have been that way. That's
yeah. No way. An agreement is something between two parties that spells out what their transaction is, what they agree to. The main thing is to try to cover everything that you agree to, not to leave anything for guesswork, and to express things in a way that when somebody reads it, they know exactly what you're agreeing to. So for instance, if you're going to be taking care of somebody's apartments, you want to say where the apartment is. The street, you want to get exact, and if you can put the GPS coordinates if you want, but the street is good enough. But as exact as you can, but you don't just stop there. You need to say how many apartments there is. Not I'm going to manage your apartments. I'm going to manage your apartments on Springfield Road. There are 10 units. Each unit is 2,000 square feet, and on, and each one is upstairs, downstairs. You can attach diagrams to it, attach a map of where the place is. And I'm just picking on one thing, how you can get so specific that nobody comes back behind and says, we didn't agree to that apartment. We were talking about another set of apartments, or we didn't even talk about half of them, not all of them, and all of that stuff. You want to really not just do something that I'm going to manage your apartments. You're going to get more specific than that. So in using templates are good, but you wanna look at as many templates as possible, because again, don't be sheep. You want to be the shepherd. You want to make this yours, and to make it yours, you have to understand the options that you have. I always say what makes us powerful as human beings is that we can choose. And what makes you a human is when you are capable of choosing, when you have choices in front of you and you know how to choose and you make your choice. So I apply that even to using templates. So if you're gonna have templates, you wanna go through as many different templates as you can find, and you're gonna reason within your sensibilities and trust your instincts and say, I don't like this, or I like this particular thing in this one, and literally extract what you like. I mean, trust your instincts, and take out what you like and so forth and so on, and make something of your own. Marjorie.
Yes, I just wanted to add into what you said about using the templates. When I first came up with my own agreement, I submitted it to the potential client at the time, and they came back. We had our small little tweaks and whatnot, but they agreed on everything afterwards. However, they didn't want to sign as I had submitted. They wanted to submit it to their legal team to put exactly what I said into legal speak. So that's why when I received this assignment, I decided to, look into templates, because obviously if the client chose to change it into a legal format, which is what the template turned out to be, I figured that would be something you would have been looking at too. So that was part of my decision making, because I had already done it in another format, but then.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. Yeah, so Marjorie's making an important point. You're gonna be dealing with any number of clients, and even yourself, that want the agreement to sound like in legal speak. So it's something that lawyers would recognize as something said in their language, not in yours. So again, but you're not a lawyer, so you want to start off by making sure that this agreement says what you want it to say. And at some point, I mentioned you'd probably want to pass it by a lawyer, or if your client takes it to a lawyer, definitely, and changes it, into legal speak, you definitely must take it to a lawyer of your own, somebody that has your interests at heart, and say, look, I have a client, we have an agreement, their lawyers have come up with this, could you have a look at it? And this is why you have to have money in your back pocket, because you're gonna probably have to pay somebody to have a good look at it. You don't wanna give this to, unless it's a really, really good friend, you wanna give this to somebody whose commitment it is to do a good job, so you pay them, and they come back and says, okay, I looked at what their lawyers have said, and I like it, I don't like it, et cetera, et cetera. I think Kevin was trying to say something out of that.
You answered the question, because like it's same as if, the person that, that Marjorie submitted to, and they send it to their lawyer, it'll be wise to as you said, incorporate, you as your lawyer to make sure that, they ain't changing the wording up, because sometimes they get themselves more rights and more loopholes, when they draft for themselves.
Yeah, of course. Just like you should, when somebody takes something to their lawyer, that lawyer is not, and don't ever get it in your head at all that somebody's lawyer is going to do anything to your benefit. That's not their focus. They're working for their client, and that client is not you. So in many cases, and I've seen this, the opposite lawyer is actually looking for ways to advantage their client if they're a good lawyer. And some of those ways will disadvantage you. So you want to make sure that when they're done with their stuff, you take it to somebody else, and someone who's going to be working for you. Okay, the other point that I want to make while we're on this is that your management agreement, to me, a core feature of a management agreement is about the relationship you're going to have with the person that you're agreeing with. So you can spend a bunch of time talking about what you're going to be doing with the property, what you could be doing with tenants, and so forth and so on, but do not leave out specifics or some information on what you expect the relationship to be like with the owner. And sometimes that becomes the rub, because if you don't say something like, we promise to mutually respect each other, or something like that, you may find yourself in an arrangement. You have an agreement with somebody who has decided, that you are, someone to slap up and slap around, and you don't have it in your agreement that they can't do that, or they shouldn't do that. It's one of those things that I think you want to spell out in the agreement, that we're going to treat each other respectfully. A lot of people don't put that in agreements because that is a bit sort of objective, but you can kind of make it as a bit non-objective, because you can say things like, we won't cuss each other out, or, and so forth and so on, whatever. But I think it's important, my opinion, to put something in the agreement about what you expect out of your relationship, because you're going to be having one. You also have to make sure that your agreement does serve the interest of the owner. Don't get so caught up in your own interest that you're not acknowledging that the agreement has to take care of the owner's interest. I can't remember who it was who talked about not being comfortable with the management agreement, or not feeling strong enough to do it, or knowing enough. I'd like to tell you a bit of my philosophy. I think I've said this before. And your greatest strengths and your greatest opportunities in life come with the things that you're not good at. Is anybody in the class likes statistics? Let me see if I get any hands. Oh, so Cleophas likes statistics. So I'm gonna ask him a question. What is the definition of change in statistics, Cleophas? What would you say it is? is the statistical definition of what change is. If there's a formula for change, what would that formula be?
Say that again. What you,
if there was
like,
a formula for the word change, or the thing called change in stats, if there was a formula for change, what would that formula be? Or how would you define change in statistics? That's a hard one, right?
Yeah, because it depends.
Give it a stab. Whatever it depends on, give it a quick stab so we're not spending too much time on it.
So, well, when I started off under someone, basically they said it'll be basically, I don't know if this is exactly what you mean, but it's like,
I don't want what I want. I want what you want to say. I'm willing to accept anything you say.
Okay, like when I did a project management course with statistics, it's something like when you have projections versus deliverables. So it's almost like, okay, I could give you a projection of, let's say a project would take me 2 weeks, but within that project, you come across, I don't know, any type of variable. Let's say rain. Rain could delay projects. Let's say like now they have in shortage. You can't get cement, or you have to wait on blocks, stuff like that. So now with your statistics, you have to calculate change.
Okay.
And it throws it off.
So in short, what you're saying is that change is the difference between what you expect and what actually happens.
Yes.
Right? Okay. I think Kevin was trying to weigh in, but he seemed to.
Right. Yeah. You said the formula, right? The formula is P1 minus P0 over P0. Now. Okay. Yeah.
That is the formula. So let's dive into that formula a little bit in human language.
Mm-hmm.
So what Kevin has just described, and let me say it to you, and I really want you to put this in your brain. Don't write it down. I mean, you can write it down, but I want it in your brain, in your soul, because this is an important thing to know. Change is the difference between where you start, where you end up. Isn't that true? Is the difference of where you start and where you end up. One is the difference between 2 points, and that difference is divided by where you start. So it's where you came from, where you end up, divided by where you came from. And you can work that out as a percentage by multiplying it by 100. Everybody got that? I hope. Let me say it again. Change is determining your starting point and the difference between that starting point and where you end up. And sometimes you can end up in a negative, but let's say you end up in a positive, but wherever you end up is a difference. And sometimes you end up in the same place. So if you end up in the same place, it's called no change. But you can have negative change and positive change. But it's the difference where you start, where you end up, divided by, this is what a lot of people miss, divided by where you start. Or let's not use divided by. Where you start, where you end up, the difference between the two, and difference is that you minus one from the next. That's what difference means. And instead of saying divided by, you say as a function of where you start, or based on where you start. Where you start, subtracted from where you end up, based on where you started. So P0 minus P1 divided by P0. Now, why am I talking about this thing called change? Anybody know why am I highlighting this thing called change? Because I want to prove to you that the biggest change that you can possibly make is when you add 0. And I'm going to prove it this way, just to be quick. Okay, Using my formula, and I want everybody to get a piece of paper and do this. Using my formula, where you start, which is P0, where you end up, which is P1, divided by where you start, which is P0. We're gonna start in position 1, right? We're gonna, let's use 2. We're gonna start in position 2. We're gonna be at step 2, and we're gonna have we're gonna end up at step 6. And I want you to work out what the change, the percentage change was. So it's where you start minus the difference between where you start and where you end up, divided by where you started. So everybody got that? So it's 2, the difference between 2 and 6 is what? Okay, let's not use 6 because we can get a funny answer. We're gonna get an answer. Let's use 8 instead of 6. So difference between 2 and 8 is what? Everybody?
No, it's 6.
6 divided by 2.
2 and 8 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is what?
3.
3 times 100 is 300. So you have made a 300% change, or you've made a 3 times change. Your change factor is 3, or it's 300%. You've made a 300% change in your life by moving from step 2 to step 8. Everybody got that?
Yes.
And that's how you always work out your changes. In fact, you don't have to use numbers. You could be having a relationship that started this way and it's now this way. And you can say, based on where I started, and based on where we are, this is the change. The change is not simply the difference between where you start and where you end up. You have to base it on where you started. That's important, basing it on where you started. So with that in mind, this is what I want to get to. Say your first step, and once you write it down, your first place where you start at 0, right? And you go all the way to 8, right? Or even let's go from 0 to 10, big change. From 0 to 10, what is your percentage change there?
100%.
Marjorie, no? Did you say 0 minus 10 is what? The difference between 0 and 10 is what? 10, right?
10 divided by 2, 5, 50%.
No, it's 10 divided by 0. You started at 0.
Right, answer 0 then.
You always divide, you always base your change on where you start. You start at 0. So,
right.
So the difference
is it 10? Is it 10?
10 divided by 0 is what?
10
divided by 0 is immeasurable. It's infinity.
Right.
Any number divided by 0 is infinite. The change is infinite. When your opportunity is 1, where in fact, the difference between 0 and 1, if you move from 0 to 1, that's a difference of 1, and you divide it by 0, it's an infinite change. Although moving from step 2 to step 8 gives you a 300% change, moving 1 step from 0 gives you an infinite change. Now that's a wonderful thing to know for those of you who are tussling with, this exercise is challenging, this is a lot for me to learn. If you think you're weakening in anything, that is what you need to focus a lot of energy on, because that thing is where you have the biggest possibility of getting infinite change. Just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
All right, so let's take a breather, a 1-minute breather. let me go and close my window because it's raining where I am. So give me 1 second. Okay, maybe.
Kevin, you still there?
Hey.
Give me the actual formula again, if you could, please.
You know, the formula?
Yeah, for change.
Yeah. The ending, less the beginning, all over the beginning. Yeah, all it is that if you start at a certain point and you end up at a certain point, the ending, where you end up, and where you begin, and you divide that over where you begin.
Yeah, I got it. That's why I had to get it.
Yeah. Yeah, the infinite. The infinite change really is just something that's arbitrary. But normally people start at a certain point, like one or two, whatever have you.
Yeah.
So
well, actually, Kevin, you made that clearer, to be honest.
Yeah.
by saying it like that, ending less the beginning divided by the beginning.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's much better than the actual number formula.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Just plug in.
Yeah. And what was the actual formula again? Was it P0 minus P?
It's you know, it's a start is use a bunch of strange stuff, right? All they're saying is it's P1 is where you end, the ending. Remember, P1 minus P0, the beginning, over P0, which is the beginning. So the same way how I said it, ending less beginning over beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I'm back, folks. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about the assignment. It's about 5 minutes. I really am proud of the job that you guys did with it, the varying approaches. You will see that I'm gonna beat you up a little bit about the delivery of the way you deliver your product, and I think it's for a good cause, because as property managers, your success is going to hinge a lot on your ability to be excellent. And excellence is really an interesting thing. Excellence doesn't really mean no one's better than you. Excellence means is when you deliver something that it is tight. So, for instance, if you show up to meet a client and you are dressed to the nines, but your shoes is dirty, you could be, you know, in an outfit that costs $5,000 and is as clean as a whistle, and your hair is all done up and or all well put together, and so forth and so on. But there is a speck of dirt on your shoe. That is the very definition of a lack of excellence.
Okay.
It's those small things that actually derail great effort. So he who would be God of big things must be God of small things. Mm-hmm. So those of you who might get a little bent out of shape with me talking about commas and so forth and so on, it's because those small things like commas make a difference between you appearing to really be credible and not being credible, no matter how smart you are. So my word of advice to you is this. There's several approaches. None of us are great at anything that we can't be better at. So when you do, we're talking about your assignments are going to be in writing. So obviously you're going to spell check, but the machine has no common sense. So if you spell, a word like DEAR or DEER, both of them are going to be spelled correctly. So it's not going to tell you that one of them is incorrect. They're both going to be correct spellings. So you need to help the machine out, those of you who like to rely on the spell check, to literally read your work. Now, one strategy that I'd like to say to you for reading your work, take some time. But this strategy is to read it out loud, slow and loud to yourself, or even have someone read it to you or read it to someone. That is an incredible strategy for one, picking up errors, two, for helping you to realize that something doesn't sound right. When you read stuff in your head, especially the stuff that you've written, and I'm saying this as a writer, when you read stuff that you've written in your head, you see what you want to see. The brain is a marvelous thing. It will help you to see what you want to see. When you start to read it out loud, you are forced to do so many things that you have to actually see it. You have to listen to it. You have to understand what you're reading. It's a lot of things that goes in the process of reading out loud that really helps you a lot to pick up stuff that you don't pick up otherwise. So that's a strategy that you should add. Read your stuff out loud. Odessa.
Okay, my question in line with the housekeeping as relates to assignments, while I remember, I wanted to ask from the first assignment, I know with academic writing, you have to present your sources and all of that type of stuff. Could you expand on that as it relates to your expectations when it in regards to that, please?
Okay, sure. And I particularly, if you look at the rubric that came with the assignment, it particularly said you should cite your sources, and you should get used to that. And it's not just, in my opinion, it's not just an academic thing. It really should be a life thing. You sound a lot more intelligent when you're able to say, I have this piece of information that comes from this source. I'm telling you what the intelligence is. You're not pretending or assuming or presuming or that it is your information, because it isn't. So you're letting yourself off the hook a little bit. Your smarts is that you are able to understand that that information is useful, so you've picked it up. But you're smart enough to also say, I picked it up from this place. You're also smart enough to say, one of the reasons for doing sourcing is to say, because I have looked at this source and that source and that source, then me, Odessa, comes to this conclusion. Now that conclusion is mine. What these other people say, that's what they say, and that's, I'm only quoting them. But this thought here is my thought. And it helps to highlight the thoughts that you come up with that are actually your thoughts. And it makes you way more intelligent when you spend your entire time talking about what other people have said as if you are saying it.
Okay, thank you. That clears that up. Appreciate it.
So what I would say with the thing about referencing, I prefer the style from the psychology folks. So you wanna have a look at that style. And in fact, what I'll do, I'll send you a couple references over the course of the week, so you can just try to send something simple. And
that would be sorry, that would be APA, correct?
APA, yeah.
Okay.
Association of Psychological or whatever, those people. So you want to, I prefer, an APA, to be honest with you, APA has become sort of the creme de la creme of the de facto standard. It has sort of pushed there are tons of different writing styles, which is a point I'd like to make to you. Despite what people say, even despite my comments, there are many different ways to be right when it comes to writing. Many different ways. I, for instance, one of the things that's be responsible for in my role as capital development was designing training courses for folks in central bankers, particularly the management. And one of the things I always told people, they were all very intelligent, well educated. And I'd say to them, look, there are many different ways to write, but one way that you cannot escape is that you have to write for your reader. So if your reader happens to be your boss, and your boss wants to put a semicolon where every comma is, although that is wrong, that's gonna have to be the stop. You can make a stab at trying to prove to your boss that that ain't right, but if that's what they wanna do, then you gotta write that way. If you got a boss who wants to put everything in the passive voice, for whatever the reason, then, you know, the boss is the trump card. You don't write that way other than when you're writing for your boss, but you're gonna have to write that way for the boss. That's an important thing to always add to your arsenal. You have a style, you know what that style is, but it's important for you to be able to depart from that style and use other styles of writing, because there are all sorts of styles of writing. I think there is one comment I would have made probably on a couple of people's things that you're being informal. People saying I'm this or can't and so forth and so on. And there's nothing wrong with being informal. But if you're gonna write for me in this class, I'm gonna tell you, I don't wanna see informal language. I write informally, but I write informally in some situations. But for this class, I don't want to see informal writing. And that's the kind of adjustment that you need to make as a professional to know that when I'm in this setting, I can speak this way, I can write this way, and don't get bent out of shape because somebody wants you to write a particular way in a particular setting. Okay, speaking of which, let me give some of my pet peeves, and I'm gonna send you material on this over the course of the week. I prefer the use of something called the Oxford comma. And so I'm gonna send you some material on the Oxford comma. And the Oxford comma is always placing, and I put always in quotation mark, always placing a comma before the last and. That's called the Oxford comma. And I have a preference, and I demand the use of the Oxford comma. The other thing that I wanted to bring to you, and some people fell into this trap, is when you are presented with an assignment or a problem or a question, could someone tell me what is the first thing that you have to do? When you encounter a problem in life, what is the first thing you have to do relative to that problem? Hands up.
Oh, I don't even know how to do hands up.
You didn't hear the question, Blair?
Yeah, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, when you encounter a problem, whether it's a class problem, whether it's a life's problem, whatever the problem is, a business problem, when you encounter a problem, what is your very first thing that you must focus on, that you must get done?
I would say, I mean, I may be wrong. I would say first identify.
Nothing is ever wrong, Blair.
I would say first identify it and then try to understand it.
Okay, so Blair said identify and understand. So anybody else?
Well, I believe you have to actually articulate what the problem is. You have to actually put it in words. You know, so before you understand it, you have to actually define exactly what the problem is, and then you understand it. So you need to define it first, and then you can define it in simple words so you can actually identify and deal with it.
Okay. Anybody else? Good. See, Blair, there's all sorts of ways to be right about one thing. As a matter of fact, I argue that being right about something, there are innumerable or infinite ways to be right about anything.
That's very true.
Okay, so no one else. So what we have out of what Kevin and Blair said is, you encounter a problem, you have to identify it, you have to understand it, you have to define it, you have to simplify it. And this is important because a lot of us spend our lives, so much of our lives, trying to not have a problem, trying to run away from problems, avoiding problems and so forth and so on, that we do not develop problem-solving skills. I will tell you, just like I mentioned with weaknesses, the best opportunities that you have in life are found in problems. The best opportunities for learning, for discovery, for being innovative, for coming up with something that would blow the socks off the world comes from problems. There is no scientific advancement, no advancement, even when it's not scientific, that did not orientate itself in a problem. The first person who learned to cook peas and rice, or rice and peas, whatever you call it, didn't go to school to learn how to do that. Nobody showed them how to do it. They had a problem, and that was the solution to the problem. That's how we get innovation, from problems. So those of us who have a problem with problems, I want to tell you, you need to change your mindset. Problems are wonderful things, but what makes them wonderful only is if you have the cojones to say, a problem is an opportunity. Let me now see what my opportunity is. How do you see that? You said it. You have to identify that it is a problem, because some things that appear to be problems are not. Identify that it is a problem. And secondly, understand what that problem is. And that calls for a little bit of skill and practice. If you don't practice problems, and I say this for you in this course because you're going to end up taking some exam at the end of it, the best way to be able to be, whenever I took an exam, I was always sure I was going to pass it, because I practice problems. Some people sit down and read the book 4 and 5 times. I think that's ridiculous. At the end of the day, your exam is not going to say, read a book. It's not going to say, study chapter this. It's going to say, this is a problem, answer it. What you need to practice is answering problems. And start that from today. As many problems as you can sit down and literally go through, it improves your skill to the extent that, in fact, when you get many problems that you think you don't know the answer to, because you're so good at tackling problems, you come up with the answer, even if you hadn't studied material for it. So the strength is in practicing problems. Going back to the assignment, what 1 or 2 people would have missed is what the problem was. The first part of assignment 1 asked you for the history of property management. To make it simple, I'll just try and find one word that captures that problem. And that one word is history. And that's capturing what the problem is. But then you need to understand the problem. How do you understand the problem? Somebody. Once you've got the word history, how do you understand what the problem is? Nobody? I would suggest that finding out, understanding the problem means that you need to understand what history means. Not just your instincts about what history is, but at the very minimum, no matter how smart you are, go to Google, grab a dictionary, look up an encyclopedia, and look up the definition of history. What is the definition? Did anybody do that for this exercise?
That actually look up history and define it.
Yeah, look up the definition of history. What does history mean?
I think, based on what I understand it to be, I think history is just a recollection of past events
Okay, but nobody looked it up. And what I'm saying is that no matter how much you know, you want to buttress your knowledge by looking it up. Look it up. I know what history means. We all know what history means, but look it up. It won't hurt you. Look it up in 2 and 3 sources, what history is. Because that's the one thing, the only thing that you required for this problem, and it was history. And it's the history of property management. Now, some folks, 1 or 2 folks, spent the entire exercise defining property management. The problem did not ask you to define property management. Not at all. It just asked you for the history. So you need to know what it's asking you for. The next part of the problem asked you for a number of things. There's a list of things. And I would have pointed that list out to some people. Could somebody go back and tell me what the second problem was focusing on?
The first assignment?
Yeah, the first assignment, the second part.
The second part, it says compare and contrast the following fields.
Okay, so the simple words is compare and contrast, right?
Yes.
What are the instructions of the problem? The instructions is to compare and to contrast. What does it mean to compare?
When you're making sure, well,
take 2 things, and you take
how alike 2 things are.
Elements, and you say,
how similar are they?
Similarities.
How similar are they? Contrast means what?
Opposites, how different they are from each other.
Yeah, what's different between these things? That's what the question is asking you to do. What's alike? What's different? Now, if I were answering this question, I would answer that. I've got 3 elements: property manager, property management, project management, real estate agency, or real estate agency. And I would say, okay, how do they compare to what? Each other. Right? And then how do they contrast? So what is alike between them? You can do it that way. You've got 3 things. I've got 3 friends, and they all like to have fun. So that's what's alike. Or 3 of them like to have fun. There's 2 of them who, like to read. The other one doesn't like to read. So I'm comparing 2 of them like to read. 1 doesn't like to read. So let's compare and contrast. And what else does the problem ask you to do? It goes into more details at the end.
Yes. It says you must research and discuss the similarities, differences, crossovers,
okay,
linkages.
So hold on. You must research. That's an action, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you must discuss. Discuss means what? To talk about in your own words. That's what it means to discuss. Not to research means to look at what other people have said. That's really what research is. Research is to make a concerted effort to see what others have said about something. That's what research is. It means nothing else. Discuss is a different thing, because discuss is, now I'm going to talk about what I feel like talking about based on what I have seen others talk about. And what is it asking you to research and discuss? Give me those things, Marjorie, you're on it.
Similarities, differences.
Similarities, which means what? What are the sames?
How are they alike?
Okay. What else?
Differences.
Differences, which is the contrast. What else?
Crossovers.
Crossovers. What is a crossover?
Crossover, how they go into each other's fields.
What about how are they linked?
How they
go linked?
How they relate, how they touch on each other, how they interfere with each other.
That's linkages, huh?
That's crossover. Crossover is, how do I how do I dip into somebody else's territory?
Right.
What are the crossovers?
Crossovers, right.
And then the other last thing was linkages.
And barriers.
Pardon?
Linkages and barriers.
Linkages and values. So linkages sound like crossover, but it ain't. It sounds like it's a little bit like it. It's close, but linkages has a more positive things. What are the things that that associate these fields with each other? Not crossover, not where they are going and stepping over into somebody else's thing, but how do they get along? That's what linkages kind of mean if you look at it. And then the other one says values, which
sorry, barriers.
Barriers, which very few people touched on. And a barrier is what? What is a barrier?
Something that stops the forward movement.
Something that stops things from progressing.
Right.
And I really, really stress to you that when you have a problem, you want to do this to the problem.
Yeah.
You want to tear the problem into little bits so that the problem gets into your soul. So by the time you're answering it, your answer is not going all over the place, because all you want to do is to touch on what the problem is, nothing else. I don't need to know for this particular thing anything else but what this is asking.
So Ian, in regards to the barriers, I know most barriers to entry in any profession really is it's the legality of it, and also the licensing. I know with real estate, you need to have a licensing, and also and also with project management. I think to be a project manager, it also requires licensing and certification. So so I guess
well, to be honest with you, that's an interesting point that you made. To date, there's technically no legal, the real estate folks have some legal document behind their industry. And that legal document keeps others out of the industry easily getting into the industry. The contractors have done the same thing for their industry. And there are other professions, obviously engineers and other professions who've been doing the same thing. But that has not happened for property management. In fact, one of the reasons why I asked you to look at these things in tandem is because if you really studied the history of property management is, as much as we might say it's been around for a little bit, it is a baby of an industry. It is just getting itself together. And in the Bahamas, it is really pretty much open season. I would like to say property management in the Bahamas is what people like yourselves are going to make it be.
Yeah.
Right, Crystal, in regards to this, so I'm going to use the word is unregulated. So which means that property management really is a cowboy market then.
That's right. Property management is unregulated, like many other industries were, and pretty much there really is not many industries that started off being regulated. But what you want to do, folks, in this course, is think about, boy, one day I would really love to have this industry regulated that I'm in, because what does regulation do for you? Regulation actually protects you, the professional. It protects your business. It protects persons who are not professionals from sullying your business. That's what the real estate people try to do. You don't want anybody to pick up and say, I'm going to do this, because some of those folks will not be professionals, and they would give you a bad name.
Yep.
And so you want persons in your profession to have a basic foundation in terms of not messing your business up because you're a professional. So we want to move this industry to a place where folks like yourself one day are going to come together and agitate for, look, we want some legislation around property management. We want there to be a Property Management Act. And we want property management to be registered by the property managers, to be registered by the government. not to try and exclude people, but to make sure that if somebody is doing crap in the industry, that you can actually use the law to get rid of them. And that if somebody is just not somebody who should be in the industry, that you could easily point out, you know, this person doesn't have what it takes to be in this industry, and that could be legalized. Sorry, Crystal, you wanted to say something? No, okay, so Marjorie. Yeah,
yes,
Marjorie.
Just answer the same point that you're, the same point.
Marjorie, go ahead.
Okay, so just back to that same point about regulation. I'm wondering, with our with this certification, would this then be the start of that?
Most certainly. One of the things that I envisage, I'm going to go back to the visionary for this industry, the late Gaydeen. But one of the things that I'm envisaging is moving this industry to a pinnacle place where it's recognized nationally as an industry, separate and apart from any industry, where persons with this particular certification are recognized as the professionals in the industry. But like all other industries, I know that having the certification is never the only thing. Whether you're an engineer or real estate agent or any, you have to also have some performance matrix as well, where you've either performed in the industry for 3 months, 6 months or something, or for project management, you've had to do at least one project that you would have had to manage before you can get your PMP, and on and on. So I don't see this being any different, where you'd want to have the certification, but the person would need to be able to show that they are performing in the business as well, and other criteria. You may even want to have affiliates, because there are one or two, if you would have read through the chapters, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, so I'm going to jump. If you would have read through the chapters, I believe there's a chapter that talks about the overseas companies that have something, not companies, organizations.
Right.
Did anyone write a note on at least one organization that they think internationally they would want to get some affiliation with?
That global one, BISA, I believe it is. BISA, this international. But anyway, it's one of the first.
While Marjorie is looking, this is why I asked you to read these chapters, guys. So
yeah, I read it, but I just don't remember.
When you read, you should take notes.
Yeah.
Take notes of things that interest you. Take notes of things you don't understand.
What I mostly was thinking is where they were. Mostly was the UK, and the very few was the US. So.
Yeah, so some of them are in the UK. Like in my case, when I ignored all of the UK ones, no matter how good they sounded.
Exactly.
I actually made a list. On my list, I had one major international organization that I think, okay, I would like to see if I can join them. And that's the IREM. Which one is that? Crystal, your mic is off. Crystal, your mic is off. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, which one is that? IREM.
IREM?
Yes.
The Institute for Real Estate Management one?
Is that what that is? No, I don't think so. Are you looking at it or are you guessing?
No, I'm asking.
Institute for Real Estate Management. That's IREM? Okay. Why would you think I would pick them as one of my #1 organizations that I'd want to join?
Because it covers for real estate, and with real estate, even though we're in property management, real estate has more of a broader spec of a covering, because this industry.
Okay, that's good. Anybody else? So I picked as one of my #1 organizations that I'd like to join, IREM. Somebody else tell me why you think, pick my brain and think, why would I pick that one?
Yeah, but I see also the IREM also covers property management. So I think it adopts the field, even though it's not regulated. It tries to adopt it and impose regulations on it, on its level. So it's more of an adoptive organization, as opposed to it being a specifically an organization that's geared towards specific regulation.
Okay, so I have Lamar on the call, so I'm going to pick on Lamar and ask him why he thinks I think IREM is my #1.
Well, good day, everybody, again. I believe IREM is your #1 just from knowing you briefly now, because IREM offers a lot of continued education in the process.
There you go. So he's hit the nail on the head. I liked IREM. They offer a certified property manager, just like that, something called a CPM. They also offer accredited residential manager and so forth and so on. And that's what I look at in an organization, an international organization. An international organization is not just something I'm a member of this, boom, 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 but something that actually offers me life-changing skills. And somebody who's going to say, I'm going to teach you something, is offering you life-changing skills, not just some name, some letters. There's some people who spend their lives getting associated with this and associated with that and being able to put all sorts of letters behind their names, but they really don't know a lot. So you want to know that your life is being changed by things that you're associated with. And I like IREM for that. What are some of the others that any of you looked at that you think you would like to be associated with? Okay, let me pick on people now. Brittany. Brittany, you have a book, right?
Okay, just to help out, what do you guys think about the PMA?
Brittany?
Hi.
Are you there? You are.
I'm here, yes.
Okay. Are you able to tell me, this is from chapter 1.
Yes, I'm following.
Are you able to pick out one of these organizations that you think you'd be a member of and why? Honestly, other than the one that I just did.
Honestly, when I was writing, I was looking at BREIA, you know.
Okay. So you're looking at BREIA.
Yeah.
Fine. Why BREIA?
Well, because it's here.
Okay. It's in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I'm going to counter argue you. BREIA does not offer a property management support. BREIA is a real estate agency, a real estate focus.
Well, that would have been something else that I would like to get into.
Because you also want to be a real estate person.
Yeah.
While we're here talking about this, Brittany, make sure that we talk about this at the end. I do want to talk about, because part of the assignment was to have you thinking, Simon is very deliberate, thinking about property management, yes, but thinking about real estate agency and thinking about project management. That's why I actually do this assignment. These assignments are not just, I just want to give you something to do. I'm not going to give you an assignment that's not going to be beneficial to your career. Remember that. Every assignment is intended to benefit your career. And the benefit in that first assignment One was history. The benefit of that is for you to start thinking about, how do I write this story? There's a very short story in property management, very short. It ain't even started yet, to be honest. We on chapter 1, line 1. Your challenge as property managers is, how am I going to write this story? Because it ain't nothing written, ain't nothing there, especially in the Bahamas. How am I going to make this story pop? That's your challenge. That's why I asked you to do that exercise. The second part of that exercise is about looking at 3 fields that, in my opinion, all of you should be thinking about knowing a lot about: project management, real estate agency. Obviously, property management is where you focus, but you want to know a lot about those other 2 fields. In fact, if you can get it under your belt, you want to become a certified property manager, but you want to know what they do and how they do it. You want to know a lot about real estate agents, how they do it, or even become a real estate agent yourself. You don't have to, but that's why I gave you that exercise. Thank you.
Is one.
Sorry, Marjorie.
IFMA, I think that's quite broad as far as management. And as you said, with the IREM, it's continued education as well. So that could be, and it's US based, which is very close to our market. So right. I think that would be a good one. International Facilities Management Association.
Okay. Cohen, any of the organizations in that list, other than the ones we've already mentioned, that you think would be of interest to you or to us?
Well, right now, I would say the OPMA, the On-Site Property Management Association, will be for me right now. And then later on, like a few years from now, I'll go into the real estate one.
Okay.
Previously mentioned.
All right. Now, anybody else before we wrap this section? Kevin?
I think.
Hold on. Before Kevin, somebody else was talking.
Yeah, that was me. I too lean more towards the IREM. Whatever I do, I try to become a part of organizations or institutions that have accreditation. So I really like the IREM.
Okay. All right. Kevin?
Right. The NPMA seems very, very broad-based. So in this case, property maybe refers to companies' fixed assets, particularly the equipment, physical items, and movable. So NPLA seems is more like focused on business assets and, looking after, let's say, business properties and so on, which may include rental property. So it seems like it may be a broad-based organization that, that you can network with. Be the same as if it's a network organization. We can liaise with professionals across the board.
And I would tell you one of the reasons why I put that organization in there, because the synergies between real estate property management and property management is really profound. We talked about this last time. Certainly from my experience and what I've seen, is that there is a lot of interest out there with people of fairly good wealth in having somebody manage their things, and their things that are not real property. So things like, I have an art collection, a wine collection, a collection of our family heirloom. I have furniture, that's in properties all over the world that I want somebody to manage, and on and on and on. People have all sorts of things, jewelry collections. And we spoke about this. And having the skill to do that, in my estimate, as a property manager, meaning a person who's managing, doing all the stuff we're going to be talking about in this course, having the skill also to say to someone like that you run into, oh, I can do that. I can take care of that. I can take care of your international, wine collection. I can do that. That obviously gives you another leg up on something that you can make a living from. Okay, so my other organizations there that I had, and nobody mentioned any of them, so I'm gonna spell them out, is the Vacation Rental Management Association, because in the Bahamas and in this region, and I suspect that it's gonna happen internationally too, vacation rental management has become a thing, a really, really big thing. There are lots of properties, lots of homes, lots of other types of properties in this country and throughout the Caribbean region and even spreading further beyond that people own that they own just to take vacations in. And they actually allow other people to take vacations in them. So the vacation, I like that particular organization because of its focus, because there are lots of opportunities in that particular area, especially for Bahamians. Then there's the other one that I had was the National Association of Residential Property Managers, which is kind of close. That one, I think I really liked because that also has a lot of certifications involved in that particular, and it's, although the focus is residential property managers, it still is a great area, residential properties. And then the last one that I had on my list was the National Apartment Association, which is similar, but their focus is apartments. Now, one of the things that I want you to get out of, what I just did was that when you are reading, you're not reading the newspaper. Again, you've got to be really selfish. You are reading for your benefit. If not, don't bother. You're reading for your benefit. So if you're reading for your benefit, you want to extract out of the reading things that are beneficial to you. And one of the best ways to do that extraction is to buy a notebook for that book that you're reading and actually write down the things that you feel connected to. And ask yourself questions and answer them and so forth. Make up questions from material. Don't overpass things because you don't understand them. Those are the things you want to understand. Go to another source. If the book says something, check to see if the book is right, or check to see if there's more information on that thing. For instance, this book is giving you websites on those organizations. Let me see do a raise hands for anyone who went to any of those websites. No hands were raised. So shame on you. You should have at least gone to at least one of those websites to see what that organization is talking about, because this book doesn't tell you. So that's how you read. You're reading for your benefit. So the book says A and you want to go and look, you want to write that down. This is interesting. Maybe I can look at this organization and see what they're really all about, how much members they have and what they really cover, because one day I might want to reach out to them. As Bahamian property managers, one day we may want to say we are affiliated with, because BREA is affiliated with whom? Does anybody know? They're affiliated with someone. In fact, one of these organizations in this book.
NAR.
They're affiliated with NAR. They're affiliated, some of their members are affiliated with CRA, and some of them are also, and a lot of them are affiliated with BOMA. They will tell you we're using BOMA standards, BOMA. So they are affiliated with some of these organizations as well. So it's important for you as property managers to start thinking about who would I like to be affiliated with? When we get this property management thing established as a bona fide meat and potatoes industry, who are we gonna reach out to and say, hey, we're here and we want you to recognize us, that sort of thing. Okay, any questions, any thoughts before we move on from there? All right, so someone asked, the question. Sorry, Cleophas? No? Someone asked the question, is there a standard in the Bahamas as to how the management agreement should be presented? We've covered that. There is no, I mean, there's no standard in the Bahamas for anything to do with property management, to be honest with you. In fact, as I've said, you are going to be the genesis of what creates these standards in the Bahamas. You are. You're going to have to, and you have to see yourself that way. You have to see yourself as the people who are going to make this industry happen and define it, create it, and just make it fly. And that's the God's truth. I'm not just trying to blow air up here or whatever, but that is the truth. So there is no standard in the Bahamas. And as I mentioned to you, you've got a wonderful opportunity. Where there's a void, that's where creation happens. You can make something happen. When you walk into an area where everything is already well-defined and fences already built, it's difficult. It's difficult for you to do anything beyond the fences. We're in a situation where there are no fences. There are no borders. You can just make anything happen. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity, although to some people, they are challenged by being in an environment where they have to make things happen, but you can do it. Cleophas has something to say.
I just wanted to go off what you were saying about the creating of the industry, because what you were saying earlier with how property management leads into other things such as jewelry. People want property management for their yachts or other assets. So it goes hand in hand with asset management. I did an international course. I work at the US Embassy. So I did a course on property management, and it covered more than just property. Like from what I read so far in the book, it does a lot with home, land, rentals, like land or either building. But in property management, what really would separate us from the real estate agents would be that we do more than just home, land, and like real estate. You can do asset management, where you be in charge of people portfolio, where based it doesn't have to be buildings. It could be jewelry, it could be cars, it could be yachts, it could be any sort of whatever you consider as an asset. I think you asked us last Saturday, like what is asset, or what do we count as property? And it's asset. So I think, and when the industry is being formed, I think that it should focus more on a broader spectrum of property management. So it does separate us from the real estate agents, and it gives us a better head start.
That's a wonderful idea, and I hope somebody wrote that down. That's a sweet idea. That can't be ignored. That's a great idea. Okay, someone mentioned, I'm going through these questions in lesson 3. It mentioned that if you have real property, you can create a trust for the property and have multiple properties in the trust, but managed separately. How does this work exactly? Now, so let's spend a little time talking about, I don't know if we have any bankers here, or some lawyers know a little bit about trust too, and some accountants do. But let's talk a little bit about this word trust. Using common sense. I'm gonna pick on somebody here. Using common sense, Georgia, what do you think a trust is? You may even know what it is, but if you don't, then I want to just fly by the seat of your pants and tell me.
I would say the trust is on behalf of something. You are entrusting it for the person. So you would be holding it, I don't know if they use the word escrow or so, for that person with other intent.
Okay, so there you go. And one of the reasons why I do this kind of thing is because I want you to know that there's very few stuff out there that you don't know about that you really actually know, anyway. You might not have studied trust, but the definition Georgia just gave is the definition of a trust. It works. because a trust is a system where you collect assets in an arrangement on behalf of somebody else. So, or where someone entrusts their valuables or their assets or their things or their investments or their companies, something that they own, something that has value, they entrust those things to someone else for that person to manage. So that person or that person could be a business, obviously, because a business is a person, takes these things off the hands of the person, sets them up in an arrangement that has a set of principles or just like you did with your management agreement, something that spells out, here's what I have, these are the things that are here, this is what we agree will happen to these things, when it will happen, why it will happen, and so forth and so on. This is a trust. So what it does is the person who owns the assets delivered them somewhere else to say, hey, I don't have them anymore. You have them, and you take care of them in this manner, and you dispense of them in this manner, and on and on and on. And that's technically what a trust is, entrusting a valuable thing to someone else.
Could I add something to that?
To manage for you. Lamar.
Yes, I'd just like to add to that. In the Bahamas, we have this, I guess a distinction is the best way to put it, between a trust and a trust company.
Yes.
So that's kind of an important thing to note, because I've come to realize that people don't really realize that that's two different things. And just to make it clear, a trust is an entity that can act on its own as like it's a person. A trust is effectively you without the liabilities included. Whereas a trust company is a company that comes into play that manages said trust and determines what it does. Now, as just a regular person, you can set up a trust and have a single trustee to do all of the management. Whereas the more wealthy people in the world, they then hire a trust company that does everything from arranging their art collection to arranging the way that their regular light bill is paid. And so I just wanted to make sure that that distinction was made. And if we go into at least not if, but when we go into trust in the class, I want you to realize that it's not the trust company that is what we're talking about, it's the trust itself. I see Kevin's got something to point at. My former accountant, Kevin.
Yeah. In terms of that, it's a trustee, the person in charge of the trust. Now, in terms of the property is set aside in the trust. And the trust really is a legal document that defines how the property is going to be managed. So you mentioned the legal aspect, but also the trust specifies and it stipulates how the property is going to be managed, and in regards to the income and also the preservation of value. So the trust does define, and it doesn't leave things for interpretation.
Well, certainly.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna have to spend some time on trust, and we're gonna do that when we talk about the things you have to consider when you set up your company. Those of you haven't, even those of you have, the type of things you consider when you're setting up your company. Then the other question that I would like to know about issues related to gender-based biases in the industry. Boy, now remembering too that the industry is a little in infancy, but I am going to guess, and I'd like someone like Marjorie who's in the industry to weigh in. I am going to guess that gender-based bias, if it does exist, is no different from, and we're going to restrict it to the Bahamas here, is no different from the gender-based bias that exists in our country on the whole. We have gender-based biases. And as a male, I'm going to put my 5 cents in and say not all gender-based biases are to the disadvantage of females. Some of them actually disadvantage males as well. Not many, but that does exist. But normally when you hear gender-based bias, people automatically think biases that disadvantage females, and that's not always true. So let's have a little discussion among ourselves about what you think the prevalence of gender-based bias is. Now, let me take my own sort of rule here, and we first start off by asking, what is the problem? What is gender-based bias? Let's say it in a different way so we know what we're talking about. Gender obviously means male or female. Gender-based means, really, the word is bias. And bias is having some favoritism or advantaging or disadvantaging someone based on whether they're male or they're female. That's really what we're talking about. So Marjorie, you had something to say. No? I thought you did. All right, so any thoughts on this? What do you think the prevalence of this is in those of you operating property management, but in the Bahamas as a whole? Let's just have a quick discussion.
Well, as speaking, Marjorie here speaking, we do have, as in most of our fields here in the Bahamas, I don't think that it really, unfortunately, it just goes the same with all of our different industries, you know, financially. And this is why this certification is so important as well, where we're able to set our expectations of cost and payment and such, because gender-based bias a lot of times affects payment for females, and also the respect factor, because in property management, there are so many facets that we touch, things like maintenance, things like giving instructions, hiring, and all these various things. And the problem is, a lot of times, for example, if you call a plumber or you call an electrician, they come and they believe that you don't know anything about their field. So they're going to speak to you differently. If there's a male present, they're going to refer or look at that male. And that's been my experience, except that once I begin to speak to them, to show them, well, I know what I'm asking you and I know what I'm talking about. But so that's with the disadvantages. We have to prove ourselves even after everything else. Can anyone else relate to that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. This automatic bias that women don't know anything about all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And the bias works the other way. This automatic thing that because I'm talking to a man, then he knows about stuff. You know, in fact, I know I'm constantly having to sort of bring people up to speed that, look, I don't know anything about cars. I just drive them. And I don't want to know. So, you know, this automatic thing that because you're a man, you know about cars and you know about the engine. Mm-hmm. You know what? You know, I have degrees in computer science and stuff, and I can tinker with computers, but I hated cars. So I never wanted to know how to fix anything in a car engine. I don't care to know. But automatically they think because you're a man, you know. So it works on both sides of the fence, because most people walk up to a woman and automatically assumes that she could not possibly know anything about a car, about what a plumber is doing, what an electrician is supposed to be doing. She doesn't know anything about it.
A roofer, you'd name it. It's always one of these things that we have to contend with. So as far as answering that question, or, you know,
so let me ask another female, Blair. How do you think, based on the fact, because this gender bias thing is something wrong with our culture. Our culture has this bias built into it. And it's not just us, it happens when you even travel to other places. How do you think we overcome this? One, you can't overcome something unless you know it's there. So you know it's there. And let's not fight. Let's not even try to argue that it's not there. There's some people who want to argue that it ain't there. I don't even get an argument with those people. It's there. How do you, as a professional, prepare yourself to overcome that? I'm picking on
Are you
Blair.
speaking in relation to gender bias?
Yes. How do you build that into your performance so that you're ready for it and so that you overcome it even before it gets to you?
That's actually a really good question. This is something that I have to think about.
Okay. Anybody with any thoughts while Blair is thinking?
Right, Ian. I think it's very, very important for us as property managers to not make assumptions about people. I know people normally, look at me and think, well, because I'm an accountant, I know but yard work or how to fix a car or how to paint, whatever have you. Because they try to class you. And with regards to the females, it's the exact same thing where a lady, I'm sure she dresses a certain way and she looks very, very elegant. When she goes to the client, the presumption is that she knows nothing about the blue collar field. And also, there's also a racial issue where people believe the white fella is always in charge. It's always, we always have presumptions and assumptions in our mind. But I think it's very, very important for us to dispel those and just come with a clean slate. And I've found that it's another point that men like to deal with men. For some reason, fellas feel want to know that they can call someone in the night or call someone on Sunday, whatever have you, and get a phone call. And, a man may feel a certain way calling a woman around 10 o'clock and saying the pipe broke or something happened. You know what I mean? So it's some people just have a certain level of comfort with a certain sex. Like females like to deal with females and men like to deal with men. It's a certain comfort level. And it in some respects, it advantages men. Because we would get the preference for owners who have that bias, and it would hurt us if the owner is a female, because she would want to deal with a female who she can communicate and convey her concerns. Sometimes men it's all up in the air.
That is interesting, Kevin.
I would like to beg to differ at one point in that. Females do not like females.
I was thinking the same thing.
Do not like females at all.
They do not. Trust me, they don't.
Hey, that jumped out
that's
at
funny.
me as well. I was like, I don't know. But
That's funny. And that's
I find that working with a lot of females, it can become rather contentious.
Yes.
So, yes.
And challenging, unnecessarily challenging.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to remember that women, by and large, to the largest extent, voted against the referendum to give women more rights. So
Oh my God, I still can't believe that to this day.
You got to remember that one.
Exactly.
That's so painful even to this day.
Exactly.
So, Crystal?
I would say definitely for a female, from a female's perspective, you, just like Mr. Kevin said, you cannot assume, and understanding this market and the profession in which the females are coming into, knowing that a man would like to speak to a man, and a lot of businesses that are currently here in the country, you'll be amazed of who are actually running those businesses. And the majority of times it would be a female, but the face of the company is a man. So understanding what your field or your area is and knowing how to pivot, knowing what you need to do in order for there to be a success in your industry. But just being aware and some assurance within yourself, with knowing that you know what needs to be done, you know the work, and just be firm with it. I noticed I notice a lot of individuals, well, a lot of males, they take a female much more seriously when they are firm.
Okay.
That's true.
Now
they call you bossy, but that's true.
They say she's no nonsense. Great
yeah,
point.
they call you bossy, but they do take you seriously when you are more
take
assertive.
You more seriously. So if you are more stern and firm with your stance with them, then they would know how to operate with you. Persons would say this a lot. Don't fool with that one. She's
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the important point we're raising here is that you, as property managers, you must think of having a strategy that deals with biases. You can't go sit on some soapbox and say, "Oh, people shouldn't have biases," and I'm not for that. These things exist, whether you like them or not, and they ain't going nowhere. And
exactly.
It's all sorts of biases, and the biases shift. You'd be dealing with one client who just, because of the way they're raised or whatever, they just don't believe nobody who don't have a certain skin color have any sense. You have to strategize as to how you work with such a person, because you're going to meet them. And some of those people are your color too. They're your color and still don't believe you have any sense because of your color. So and that's color. I know of a particular very successful company that's run by a very young man who eventually had to make the face of his company older men, because whenever he walked into a room, he would be dismissed because he looked like a little fellow. You know,
yes,
he's really young, right. and the minute he walked, he just ran a multi-million-dollar company, and he would just get dismissed because he was young.
Yeah,
and so he got around it by dealing with certain clients, by sending his people who worked for him who were of a certain age.
Yeah, just like gender bias, I find that ageism occurs within, I think most fields as well. I know it's a hasty generalization, but
no, it's not. It's terrible in the Bahamas.
Yes, it is really horrible in the Bahamas. I've had a lot of challenges with that. Just applying for other jobs when I stepped out of teaching, it was really bad.
Yeah, it's terrible. But the point that we're trying to raise is that you can't be naive. These things exist and they ain't going nowhere. And in many cases, they're hidden deep, deep, deep in the bosoms of people who carry them. And you only get the brunt of it in the results of your relationship, because they don't walk around with a banner saying, I don't like to deal with anyone who's below a certain age, or I don't like short people. I'm pretty tall, and I'm telling you, there's all sorts of stuff in the world. I had to train my sons, who are all tall, like I am. Like, look, you are going to run into a lot of people, particularly men, who automatically dislike you because you're so much taller than them. And there ain't nothing you're going to be able to do about it. You just have to know that exists in the world. You're in a crowded room and you stand up next to a certain person and they turn away and they walk away because they don't want to be standing next to a tall man. These things happen. It's all sorts of reasons why people are made uncomfortable by other people, and you just have to be sensitive to work it out and to know that there are things that you have to do to live in a world like that. Cleophas.
Yes, going back to the point, I think Kevin was saying, with people making presumptions. To be honest, that's a natural trait. That part of it, you cannot control. Like Ian said, presentation is key. So people are gonna judge you based on your appearance, things like you said with the sun, just by walking in and being a certain height, people look at you and don't like you or don't want to be near you. So in my department, I have a female that works with me. And what I try to get her to, because she is a little timid too about being in the property management department, I try to show her that, number one, the best ways for us to try get over this is by education, what we're doing now, because when you become certified, coming into the field, people respect you off the bat, whether you're male or female. You have the same certification. All of us are in the same class, learning the same material. That's number one. And then number two, you have to get into the field. What I try to tell her is to build the respect, especially with men. Men like to work with people who work with them. So what I try to show is when we go to a site, when we go someplace, come out the truck, interact with people. Sometimes because the education factor is there, sometimes you'd be like, okay, this is what you guys need to do. This is what needs to be done, and just get it done. It has to be mutual respect, whether male or female. It has to be mutual respect to get mutual respect. So when I started to bring her along, I noticed that when she comes out into the field, the guys start to realize that, hey, she's more hands-on. She comes out, she looks at and obviously in property management, you will have issues. Like you said, we will have roadblocks, and we try to explain how to deal with them. Once you're there with them and you're going through it as a team, you will build respect with your team. So all of this is part of getting over the gender bias, because like you say, men can already have this perception that you don't know nothing. But by you sitting in the truck or you standing off, it actually strengthens their perception, because they're looking at you like, okay, you don't want to come in here because you don't know what's going on. So it's like you got to get in the field to work your way in, males and females, because I have guys in my department too who sometimes are a little timid, a little shy. And I say, listen, bro, this is the field that deals paperwork and it also deals hands-on. So everything is just building, even with landlords, even with tenants, it's building connection. It's building that trust, like we said earlier, it's building that trust to where people trust you, whether you're male or female, they can trust that you're able to get the job done and you know about what you're dealing with.
Okay. Crystal, is your hand up, or that was from the last time? Don't hear Crystal, but I'm going to assume that's from the last time. But I would say I want us to go towards wrapping up. This we can go on all day here, but I promise you didn't want to take up the entire Saturday. But I would say this: this is an important thing we're talking about here, because professionalism hinges on your ability to be self-aware, to be self-confident, and to know how to present yourself. That's a huge part of professionalism. The way you behave in circumstance A, you may have to be the complete opposite in circumstance B. But that calls for having a pivot of self-confidence. No matter what your behavior shift has to be, you have to be standing on the ground of, you know what, I like me. I know it's one of the things that drive me as a human being. I really like me. And I ain't scared to say that. And it may sound a bit callous, because I like me and I'm really okay with me. It does not knock me off my socks if someone else has a different opinion. I kind of respect their opinion. You know, you could like who you want to like. And if it's not me, then I'm happy with that because I like me. Now, if you have a problem with yourself, and many people do, you need to work that problem out. If there are things about you that you need to really face these things. If there are things about you that you're not satisfied with, that makes you feel a little uncomfortable and unsatisfied, you need to work it out. I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this class, but I've mentioned the classes before, that in high school, my nickname was Smiley. Did I mention that to this class?
Yes, you did mention it. You did mention it.
Because I was incredibly shy.
Quiet,
right.
Quiet, and only smiled.
Yeah.
The only thing that could get out of me was a smile. But as I developed into an adult, and I'm still incredibly shy and introverted, but as I developed into adult, I realized that, hey, that's something about me that I need to find a way to deal with, not to get rid of it, because I'm still shy, and that's me, and I like me as a shy person. I like me as an introverted person, but I need to be able to live in the real world. And I found a way to do that. But you don't find a way to do these things if you don't want to acknowledge who you are. I'm a tall guy, and I know that has maybe some positives, but it has its negatives, and I know how to deal with all of those. And that's what you have to do. Whatever you perceive the things are about yourself that you're not comfortable, find a way to get comfortable with them. Because the minute you're totally comfortable with you, it's very difficult for somebody to make you uncomfortable. And there's some people in the world who set out to make you uncomfortable. That's what they get up in the morning to do. And you are in good stead if they're just wasting their time. Okay, so all sorts of things that we could be talking about today and that we haven't. I wanted to talk a little bit about time management, but we're not going to be able to do that because it's a whole bunch of stuff. But don't worry, as we progress, we're going to cover these important things, either by you doing your assignments and us being able to discuss them, or discussing the key stuff that I have to do. Now, we do have to spend some time talking next week about setting up a business, or all of the legal stuff around setting up a business, and talking about compensation. We're going to start the question on compensation, which is a huge thing. I think Lamar had something to say, and somebody else had something to say before we go. Does anyone not have the book? I take the silence to mean that everyone has the book. Lamar, any words from you?
Yes. So the one thing I wanted to chime in is that I hope that everybody is taking advantage of something that I don't know if Ian had actually alluded to it. I know he mentioned it, but I don't think he made a point of it. But mindset is a major thing. And I would like to just point out and give you a kudos in that you have been poking at a lot of things that do need to take note of, that aren't necessarily property management items, but they are life items that will make your property management experience go that much further, as well as your probably day-to-day jobs. So things like you mentioned, time management, things like courteousness and appearance. So even down to washing your car before you show up to a meeting, because you never know, somebody's usually always looking at you as soon as you pull up, whether you know it or not. So I just wanted to make sure everybody took note of those things as well. And as Ian mentioned, if you could make notes, that would be great, because nothing like having the ability to go back and check what was said. But otherwise, that's one thing I wanted to point out today.
Yeah, in fact, let me add to that. When we talk about life lessons, I'm going to tell you, and please do not forget this. If you meet with someone, normally most meetings are you talking about something. Never, okay, let me put it in a positive way. Always follow up your meeting with a note. And today we have this beautiful thing that people didn't have, decades ago, called email. You can literally within 10, 15 minutes of the meeting, but make sure you do it. Either you go sit in your car and write a quick note about what you discussed, but at some point, right after the meeting, you send an email to the person thank you, Miss So-and-so, for chatting with me today on XYZ matter. We looked at A, B, C, D, E, and we decided 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I look forward to, you know, whatever we want to look forward to. Always do that. Whenever you have a verbal encounter with someone about something as a professional or even as a person, you want to immediately sit down and put it in writing and says, hey, this is what we looked at. This is what we came up with. This is what we're going to do next. And just make it don't run on and on. Don't write a thesis, just nice bullet points. And it says, happy to meet you, full stop, boom, every single time. If you can't send an email that day, write a small note to yourself to send the email the next day or the next, whenever, but never not send it. Always send it. That's a good thing. Hopefully that touches a little bit on the thing that we didn't have a chance to touch on today, but we'll touch on the next thing, and that's the should knows for a property manager. Okay, it's 12:27, 3 minutes. We give 3 minutes of this, then we're gone. Somebody asked a question, what in the should knows for property managers, the one thing that stood out is that a property manager shouldn't become too familiar. Can we further discuss this in class? So I'm going to start off the discussion, and hopefully the rest of you can continue. And the not too familiar, it kind of explains it a little bit in the book, and it says, you know, you don't start telling people really, really personal details. The person doesn't need to know, you know, we all know what personal details are. So when you meet a client, you have to be careful, even when they try to get very personal. So if a client starts to tell you about what they did last night with whom and how and why and when and where, you have to be professional enough to not go there. You don't want to be insultive because everybody has a way of expressing themselves. And some ways are inappropriate. Some people express themselves inappropriately. But normally, in my opinion, the appropriate reaction to inappropriateness is for you to be appropriate, not for you to descend into the inappropriateness. And also, the other side of it, for you to be rude is also always, in my opinion, it's always inappropriate to be rude. You don't have to ever be rude. At the end of the day, you can always tell someone, you know what, excuse me, I have to leave. But you don't have to stay there and slug it out with anybody. So in terms of being too familiar, in my opinion, it's really talking about keeping things professional. At the same time, a lot of your relationships get to a place where, you know, you're not simply just professional, but you have some sort of personable affiliation with the person or persons you're dealing with. You're okay with them and they're okay with you. And you can talk to them in a certain manner, but you always never want to totally drop the professionalism in the relationship. I'll give you an example. I think somebody mentioned in their profile that they sent in to me that they couldn't swim. But I'm a swim coach. And one thing that I specialize in as a swim coach, and this is my specialty, I specialize in teaching adults, in particular adults who have a serious fear of swimming. I specialize in teaching those adults how to swim. And my particular specialty is that I will teach you to swim within half an hour. I mean, swim within half an hour. And I've never failed. I would tell you that that particular job that I do, I have to be incredibly professional, but at the same time, in order to pull off what I do pull off, I have to establish an element of trust with the person that I'm teaching that is way up there, because it's a huge part of how I do what I do. but it cannot be done unless I'm also being professional. So you have to find a way to do both things. Sorry, now we're at 12:30, but I'm going to give 5 more minutes to everybody who wants to weigh in on this thing about becoming too familiar. What does that mean? So because I said everybody, I'm going to pick on everybody. So I'm going to start with Odessa.
Hi, you called my name?
Yes.
Okay, thought so. Getting too familiar.
Odessa's connection. Okay, go ahead, Odessa. We lost you for a minute.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, crossing the line sounds like persons not knowing the difference between a business partner relationship and a friendship. You know, it's okay to become friends with the persons that you're in business with. However, there's still some lines of respect, like you discussed when you talked about in the agreement should always speak to mutual respect. So when I think about crossing the lines, it's almost as if you are not giving mutual respect in that this is somebody else's property. I don't have the right to, because it's my friend. I can just rent it out and have parties there every.
Okay, Odessa, Georgia. Odessa, you're
I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Georgia?
Or be lazy about doing.
Odessa, you're still talking, but you're not coming in clearly. So I've moved on to Georgia, please. In fact, I think we've lost Odessa. Georgia?
Yes, piggybacking on what Odessa was saying, you know, you can't relay your personal life and to your client. You still have to keep it separate, keep boundaries, and try to maintain a professional, work-friendly relationship. You could do the cordialities and, you know, how you're doing or so, but I don't feel you should delve into, you know, traumatic events or this thing happened or what kept me up last night. You know, try to keep it as professionally friendly as possible.
Okay. One of the things, for instance, I would tell you that you really want to keep off the table is if you're having financial problems.
Definitely.
Or if your client is having financial problems, you don't want to mix that into your business relationship. So you don't want to get up one day and start telling your client how you owe one fella, you know, $5,000, and you want to know if your client can help you out with that, and so forth and so on. That is a no-no. And the other side of it too is keeping the other side professional. So you want to be able to keep at arm's length a client who's going to come to you and says, you know what, I ran into a tight spot and I want to know if you could, you know, throw me out this. And my advice would be to always keep that in, you know what, you stay over there with that. Don't get pulled into that sort of rabbit hole, either you doing it or allowing your client to do it to you. Brittany?
Hi, I feel that you should never mix business with pleasure. One of the key things I think is to always keep it professional, and there are certain lines, like they said before, that you shouldn't cross when working, especially if you're a property manager and you have to deal with your owners, you work for them. So I feel as though you should keep it at a professional level at all times. As much as possible.
This is a question for you, Brittany. What do you think should happen if those lines have to get crossed? Because
if they have to get crossed?
Yeah, some of us are human and we end up having to do certain things for some odd reason. What should happen?
You're saying if the lines have to get crossed?
You know, if they do get crossed, I was being very very dramatic in my thing, but that's a part of what I do.
I think sometimes certain confidential information could start to become, I guess, mishandled. And I think that should never be. I think
okay, but because we are racing towards ending the class, my answer to my own answer to my question would be, I think that if you get to that place, you got to drop the professional side of it. You got to say, you know what, we're no longer doing a professional thing here. So that has to stop. Something has to stop. If you're gonna start a real personal type of thing, that you've got to decide that the business side of it needs to go away. And normally, if we are business minded and thinking about our livelihoods, and you think in those terms that it's either this or that, you're not going to give up your livelihood for certain things. So I think that's where you ought to go with that.
You also have to look at the red flags. I think a person who's mature should be able to detect, elements within the owner, which may suggest that they are overstepping the professional line. So I think you got to be cognizant and nip it in the bud before it becomes an issue. Like, for instance, you may have a client who may want you to be his drinking buddy, and it's a professional relationship. Sometimes the client may take you out to a restaurant and bar, and you guys may relax. But the whole thing really is that you have to know that you're in a professional environment and that there are some lines you can't cross. You know what I mean? So I think the astute person need to be able to nip that early before it becomes a real issue. So it's like you need to guide the client.
And in fact, in some cases, these are some of the things you may want to put into your management agreement so that, like I say, the relationship is covered. You may want to put in your management relationship that A, B, and C, and D, and D are out of bounds. That's not going to happen. You can't demand that because I'm your property manager that I have to go to parties with you every week. That ain't gonna work with me. It's not gonna happen. So you can decide that that's the sort of stuff you want to put. Especially if you get, as my sons would say, you get the vibe that this person is probably gonna want to do that with you. You're probably gonna maybe want to put it into your management agreement. Who have I missed? Marjorie and Cohen, I think.
Hi.
And Brittany. Yeah.
Well, for me, how to deal with crossing the line, that is something that I face quite often. And primarily just speak to the client when she invites me, or the husband, or both of them invite me to an event. I would attend the event, but I attend the event as a professional. And I attend it in order to make sure, especially because I have a concierge component, just to make sure that everything is going perfectly for them. So I kind of, I'm there with them, but I'm still there in a professional capacity. So if any questions happening, if they're ordering anything or whatnot, I'm the one who is the go-to person. I go to the various persons, but that, I guess, depends on the environment you're in and the type of clients that you have. But this is the particular client that I am currently dealing with. So that's how I would handle personal issues, because to me, that's personal,
Okay. Crystal? I think, Crystal is there. Crystal?
I could say specifically for myself, that is an element that I'm still continuously working on, mainly because the profession that I'm currently in, it's a little bit more intimate. Mm-hmm. So you do have a tendency at times to cross boundaries. And yeah, I could say for myself, I'm still working on that, remaining professional at all times.
Okay. Yeah, this is you know, all these theoretical things are simply that. Real life is a difficult thing to make happen the way you, and sometimes you work it out one day and the next day it just doesn't work that way. And you're great with 9 people, and then one person you run into and it's a fiasco, and on. But the bottom line is for you to know where your principles are and what you're trying to achieve, and work at achieving it. Okay, so out of Brittany and Blair, does anybody else have anything? I think at Cohen or Cleophas?
Yes, I guess Kevin covered it a little bit too, but it's about mutual respect. You have to, like this whole program is about, we're talking about trust. So you have to keep the professionalism, because keep in mind that the client has to feel confident in you. And you have to keep that level of professionalism for them to keep that in you, because the second you let your guard down and they see you in a different manner, keep in mind, we're also dealing with perception. So now that perception of you changes when they see you outside of your professional life, and you don't want to do that, because then that changes their relationship with you. So I think to do that, you have to keep a sort of boundary when it comes to respect, not just for the client, but like even for yourself. Like I think the other guy you had on here, Lamar, he was saying about the way you dress, cleaning your car before you go to a big meeting or a presentation, just being, because a lot of people are looking for image. They're looking for that professional property manager to say. Some of them even brag. I can be honest with you. I've been in the circles that they brag that, hey, I got this guy or I got this lady who was the ultimate professional. So all that goes towards your building your brand as a property manager. So in order to get higher end clients, or even to get more of the quantity of clients that you want, you have to maintain that professional image.
Yeah. So, and when we talk about image, we're going to talk about imaging when we talk about marketing and so forth and so on. But Cleophas just reminded me of something that I've had to take advantage of before in my life. And sometimes you say you have an event. So Cleophas talked about the car, and Marjorie talked about going to an event. And sometimes you have an event, and your car, you know, I have a couple cars, and one of them, my favorite car is my little Paso. I love that car. But if I'm going to a black tie event, I probably want to go in a different car. In fact, I have before gone to events and says, you know what, the best thing to do for this thing is to rent a limo to come, is to hire a limo to come pick me up from home and drop me and pick me up and take me back home. And you as a property manager may have to do stuff like that. There may be occasions, I mean, I wouldn't tell you go out and buy a Mercedes, because it's a stupid investment, unless you really got a ton of money and the Mercedes is making no debt in your holdings. But if you want to make an impression, you might go out and rent one. Or you might go out and rent a nicer, you know, if you only have a bicycle, you don't want to cycle to your client, you want to maybe go and rent a car, or have somebody like a limousine take you and pick you up. Those type of things you have to be cognizant of. Okay, so thank you everyone for your time. Unless someone has a burning input, I want to stop, because we've gone over, not over our 1 o'clock time that the class is for, but over the time that we said we would take. But thank you so much for the day. Please stay on top of your material in the Google Classroom workspace and your emails and elsewhere, because this week I'm going to send you quite a bit of material. I'm going to try and have that assignment to you, assignment number 3 to you by tomorrow. It should be something fairly simple, but again, useful to your career. So you folks have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and unless there's anybody else, I'd like to say sayonara. Cohen's has something to say.
No, there's a question in the chat.
Oh, there is? Oh yeah, new message. We talked, but we discussed strategies as to sex, as to other, but can we discuss strategies as to other sex titles? So I am assuming other sex titles are talking about gay, lesbian, transgender, binary, and I think I've covered, did I cover everything? Yeah, gay, lesbian, transgender, binary. These, are you talking, that's from Crystal. So Crystal, are you talking about those labels? Crystal?
It's next week.
Yes, I am. But we can talk about that at on a next class.
So make sure repeat that so we can talk about the dealing with those kind of biases on both sides, whether it's the client or the professional. These are the biases that add to the mix as well, that you certainly have to find a way to deal with. Okay.
Also for next class, I think we could talk about the age bias that they have too.
Okay, so we're gonna continue a little conversation on biases. So to avoid me putting this, not to avoid, I'm going to put it in the thing. I want you to, I did ask you to read chapter 4. So I want you to, and now that you know how I want you to read things, I want you to read chapter 4 and chapter 5 for the next class. And I'll also post your assignment. Those of you haven't sent me, you remember the first exercise we did? Those of us who are in that class, we did it verbally. I'd like you to actually send that to me in writing. That first exercise, but who are you, and so forth and so on. So those of you who haven't done that yet, could you please do that? And you have a wonderful rest of the week, and God's willing, we'll be here on Saturday.
Okay, and you're going to send any new assignments for today?
Well, I will, yeah. I am going to have that. I don't make promises.
Okay.
But I'm going to have that hopefully by tonight for sure.
If not tomorrow. Oh, no, just checking to make sure that we're getting one so I can.
Yeah. Well, what I've been trying to do is when I primarily put them in Google Classroom, but right. I also will email them, and I also will put them in the WhatsApp thing as well, for sure.
Okay.
Because I know me personally, I miss things in my email, and sometimes I miss stuff in my WhatsApp. But if stuff's all over the place, it's it's easier for me to somehow not miss it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a good one.